And I'm ready, if you're ready.
Sure.
And I just want to say I really am very honoured.
Oh, thank you.
To talk to a worm like me. So
Don't be silly.
But I also want to say that I do have some serious concerns about some of the things you said. So I will be asking you about those. But before that, I want you to tell me something about yourself so that other people know more about you, how you got to where you got now.
Yeah, practically I got here because I found out about Sharia law when I was a law student.
Yeah.
And that was how I learned that there was practice, an informal practice of Sharia law in the UK. I found out what Sharia law was, and I was horrified.
Yeah.
I do I call myself feminist anymore? Not really, because it's so ridiculous now. But as a woman, I feel I'll defend myself. I won't be treated as a second-class citizen because I'm female. And Sharia really, really does treat women appallingly, and I was disgusted. So that's the start of the journey. The rest of it, I suppose, is history. It's just the life took me along with it. I was in the Labour Party for a long time. I left that in disgust. I joined UKIP for a few years. I left that in disgust. And I got a bit tired of having other leaders. So I became my own.
Now, why did you leave these parties in disgust?
Well, Labour I left, both of them really over Islam. I think Islam is having a huge impact on loads of areas of our lives. And for example, Sharia law, forced marriage, child marriage. Labour knew all of this was going on. It knew the grooming gangs were going on. I left before the grooming gang stories broke, but if I hadn't left already, I certainly would have then. And everything was about appealing to minorities, no matter what the price was, even if it was the mutilation of children. They were willing to look away in order to win votes. And I thought that was it's morally reprehensible. I left UKIP because it wouldn't allow me to speak. Just wouldn't let me speak about the things I wanted to speak about. I was treated like a bit of a pariah, like I was, well, a bit like I'm treated now by other people, like I'm toxic. People want to get away from me as quickly as possible. I'm tired of it. I got tired of it. And I got tired of being told what not to say. So I set out on my own. I thought it was the only course of action to take. And I'm very glad that I did.
So what I understand your feelings about Islam. I studied Islam at university, actually, and I stopped studying it because I fell out of you can't say fell out of love with it. Fell out of interest with it isn't quite the same either. But I didn't like what I was studying.
In what respect?
Well, I knew about Sharia law and the inception. My concentration was on early Islamic history and how it started. So that was pretty bloody all along. So I learned as much as I wanted to learn, and then I switched. However, that's my story, not yours. I want to read you something.
Sure.
Well, this is, because I got the book, and also, and I've been obviously reading around you. I'm not running to a BBC script or anything. And this is from the Hope Not Hate website. Yeah. I know why you're rolling your eyes, and I have to say I agree to a certain extent. But Hope Not Hate can reveal that an anti-Semitic and racist conspiracy theory is rife within Anne-Marie Waters' For Britain movement. Now, there's something I wanted to, first of all, they haven't been so crass as to accuse you, so give them some latitude.
No, not any evidence.
And the second thing I wanted to ask you in a minute is why you are running a political party and not a pressure group? Because it seems to me that that would be more effective. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I'll carry on with the Hope Not Hate. Anne-Marie Waters, head of the anti-Muslim for Britain movement, continues to insist that her party is not far right, despite the fact that we have revealed numerous instances of extreme racism within the party. Mm. There might be, I don't know, you'll have to tell me that, which has become a magnet for insalubrious elements currently banned from joining UKIP. This includes numerous former members of the BNP, the British National Party, for those who don't know. So it says here, several former BNP councillors are currently representing for Britain in the local elections, as the party hopes to capitalise on UKIP's decline. All right. Okay, this is also concerning, she's talking about the number of councillors you have, concerning given the extreme racist and anti-Semitic white genocide conspiracy theory that's being promoted by sections of the party membership. So I would like you to, that's not too much all in one go, I'd like you to answer that if you can.
Is there any evidence? Are they offering any evidence?
No, they aren't. No.
Well, that's what because there isn't any. Yeah. We had two candidates in Epping Forest who had been BNP councillors. Two, and I'm not concerned. We don't ban ex-BNP. Every other party in the country, or bar UKIP, doesn't ban ex-BNP from joining. Yet it makes us far right because we don't either. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they stand? They're members of the party. They put themselves forward to stand. They stood in Epping Forest. That's it. They've offered no evidence of any conspiracy theory. I don't go around policing the thoughts of my members. But if they come to our attention, if we have anti-Semitism, we've expelled people for anti-Semitism. The only reason they join us is because people like Hope Not Hate keep throwing around hysterical smears about us, so people think we're far right. Join us. We find out that they're anti-Semitic, for example, and we expel them. We've done it several times. Labour doesn't, of course. Labour has much more anti-Semitism than we do. So I'll await Hope Not Hate's report into the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. This is nonsense, and you can tell it's nonsense by the hyper language they use and the complete lack of detail and evidence. This is nonsense. This is what they do. They are liars. They tried to go after one of our candidates in Epping Forest. He actually won the seat. They put out a leaflet mid-election. They're supposed to be charity, by the way. Mid-election, put out a leaflet in which they had doctored photographs to remove a member of our party, Nisar Hussain, from the photograph. We held an event in Epping Forest at which Nisar spoke. We all sat together. We took a picture. They took Nisar out of the photograph and distributed that to show what horrible racists we were. That's Hope Not Hate.
Okay. But yet I heard you, and I heard you say I'm afraid I couldn't find the video again, but I heard you were talking to some conference or other, and I have an idea at the back of my mind that it was in Europe, about the white race, and you mentioned that in your book as well. You bring up this subject of whiteness, so I want to talk to you about that. Let's take a blonde Scandinavian. That's obviously a white person, and then take maybe a darker-haired Irish woman. Is she less white than he is? And then how about the French, with slightly olive skin? Then how about the Italians, a little bit darker? What about the Greeks? They're even darker. And then where does it end? What is the criterion for this?
Yeah, common sense. It's language. It's political discussion and language. We could go through that. We could go through the difference between Bangladeshi and Pakistani and Indian. We could do this with any color. I am talking, and I actually said that in my speech. I don't know if you did watch the speech, but I did actually make that point that we could do this. We could go into details about various different aspects of different white people. I did actually go into that, but then I made the point that I'm speaking in a conversational, common sense manner. We know what we mean by white. We mean European. I made that point in the speech.
But what do you mean by European?
people from Europe.
So let's, you see, I come at this more from the cultural aspect of it. Are you trying to say that, say, a Jamaican living in this country who accepts British culture but has a darker skin somehow should be separated out in some way?
No, if you listen, you didn't listen to the speech. I know that you didn't listen to the speech because I actually covered all of this.
Right. I may have just
You listened to Hope Not Hate, but you didn't actually listen to me. And you started this conversation saying that you had listened to me. And it's clear that you haven't. I said nothing of the kind, and I think nothing of the kind. I spoke actually about the difference between nationality and ethnicity. I said people of all colours are equally British, and our manifesto is very clear about that. But someone from Jamaica is not ethnically English. They're ethnically West Indies. This is, and again, I made the point of this is the real world. I'm not going through an anthropological journey. I'm a politician. I'm talking about politics. And we all know, I made the point as well that non-white Britons, for example, non-white Europeans will have a parent or grandparent from a part of the world that isn't Europe, whereas white Europeans will not. This is basic stuff, but it's not an anthropological discussion.
But in what way is it relevant? In what way is that relevant?
Well, if it's not relevant when I talk about it, then why are we having whites excluded from job applications, for example? Why is there so much obsession with diversity on the left in the public sector if it's not relevant? If we're told that we're all exactly alike anyway and there's no differences, then why are we talking about diversity? If it's not relevant when I say it, then it's not relevant when we have diversity quotas either.
But yes, so why aren't you using that sort of why aren't you using that as the basis for your discussion?
I should use whatever I wish for the basis of my discussion. I'm making a political point, and I was actually talking about the fact that white Europeans are becoming minorities in major cities. We're told this by The Guardian. If I say it, it's a conspiracy theorist, but The Guardian will say it in celebration. Oh, isn't it great? White English are now the minority in London. I say it, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but this is the reality. It is. White people are becoming minorities in major cities. If people are allowed to celebrate it, then why aren't people allowed to express some concern about it? There are people concerned about it, and no one in politics will talk to them.
But surely we're talking here about, let's see, the cultural aspect of this rather than the skin colour.
Yeah, I mean, this is all virtue signaling. We're talking about if it's, if I accept that you don't see any significance in white people becoming minorities in the UK. I do. And so do millions of people. I'm speaking to them. So, I mean, you can have a conversation with people who agree with you. I'm speaking to people who agree with me. And you do have concerns about this. And because skin color it's not a vacuum thing. If you have a mass of people coming from Somalia, they're going to have a different skin color, but there are problems with that too. It's not just the innocence of skin color. There are issues that represents as well, because there are cultures that are attached to it.
Yeah, well, it's the cultural aspect that does bother me, but I think that skin color, don't you think it's a distraction?
You need to go and listen to the speech. You need to listen to the speech. If it's not significant, then there wouldn't be, why is the anti-white hatred, and it is hatred. It is racial oppression by any objective standard. What is said publicly about white people, the exclusion of white people from events, even where there was an event at a university at which white people were not allowed to attend. Another one in a small time frame wouldn't allow white people to speak.
But now, this is just plain simple bigotry, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes,
that's what I'm speaking out against. You need to listen to the speech.
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it again, and then
because you did. Well, you didn't listen to it very well, because I covered all of this in the speech.
Right. Okay. Well, you can.
It's true, I did. You can listen to it and then you'll know what I'm saying.
Let's just work with what we have.
Hope not hate.
Well, you see, because I did read the book and I made notes.
Keep calling it the book. Is it my book you're referring to?
Terror, Islam's Slow Erosion of Western Democracy, which has got your book, sorry, yes. Which has got a lot of important things to say, and basically agrees with Douglas Murray, really. Can you speculate why Douglas Murray gets a voice on the BBC and you don't?
Well, he's not from a working class background. He's got a frightfully well-spoken. He's posh. Let's put it bluntly. I'm not. I'm working class. I'm friends with Tommy Robinson, who is also dismissed and degraded because he is working class. Yeah. If Tommy Robinson spoke in the same accent as Douglas Murray, he would not be treated the way he is.
Yes, maybe. Why do you think you don't get the airtime?
Well, I just said I'm because I'm also working class and because I'm friends with Tommy Robinson, and because I'll tell them too much truth. They're not comfortable. They know exactly I won't lie, and I won't pretend, and I won't pussyfoot. They know this.
So, don't you think maybe you should change tack a little bit?
In what way?
Well, if you want to reach out to a wider public, why aren't you thinking of ways of doing that?
I am. What you're asking me is, why don't I tone it down? Why don't I rein myself in? Why don't I pretend that the truth is not the truth? I will never do that. There's no point in me being here if that's what I'm going to do. I'll continue to tell the truth. I continue to speak my mind, and I will reach people. We are reaching people. It'll take us a lot longer, but we'll get there. One of my political heroes, and I never thought I'd say this, is Donald Trump. And one of the reasons he is because he hasn't actually, he didn't change who he was. He stood as he was. He was saying before what he's still saying now. He hasn't changed. Yes, he's a multi-billionaire, so he's got a lot more going for him than I do in that respect. But I refuse to be something I'm not. I didn't come into this to do that.
Okay, right. Well, so this is you wouldn't call that, just before I go on to the next thing, you wouldn't call that a refusal to compromise, would you?
It depends on what it is. There are things I won't compromise on. I won't compromise on what's true and what isn't. I won't pretend something isn't true when I know that it is. That's not the same as compromising. That's lying. Okay.
All right. Now, I was looking at your party manifesto. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My notes on your book have just disappeared from my computer screen. I'm sorry about that. I will, if I look like, I'm shifty-eyed, it's because I'm trying to find the notes. Okay, but we can talk about your party manifesto now. Because then you can elaborate on some things here. You talk about in the section labeled "The Truth About Our Welfare State." You say there's been a growth in state dependency.
That's the manifesto. That's a video I made. That's not the manifesto.
Oh yeah, this is from the video. Yeah, I just got the note here. So will you talk about the growth in state dependency and how you would deal with it as a political party?
Well, there are lots of reasons. There's something very wrong with the economy when people are getting more money in benefits than they are working. And there's something very wrong with the economy when two people in full-time work can't afford to live without state dependency. It has grown. I don't remember the exact statistics off the top of my head because that was a few weeks ago. And I didn't expect to answer a question on it. But it has grown in many regards. since, for example, the 50s, 60s, 70s. It continues to grow. And I think there's something very wrong when two people in work can't afford to live without state help. First thing you have to do, and you probably won't like this, but is halt immigration. We are creating a large bank of dependency with immigration from third world countries. That is a reality. That is a truth. Many of whom are on benefits. And you can see what happened in Germany, for example, in 2015, this mass wave of people came in from the third world, and the vast majority of them are still on welfare now. See, that's one big category of welfare that you have. The second thing, you've got to look at what you are doing. What is your economy actually doing? Why is it? Why are we producing so little? What is wrong with our economy that people can't afford to live? Look, housing cost, for example, is far too high, and any basic economist can tell you that an oversupply of demand for housing will drive the cost of housing up, and it's largely what has driven the cost of housing up is an excess of demand, and that again is mass immigration. 300,000 people a year are being added to the population of this country. That's 300,000 people who need somewhere to live. That is driving housing through the roof. And the number of benefits, the amount of benefits being spent on housing is astronomical. So that's another area that has to be tackled. There are various different aspects to this. Well, first thing you have to do is control the numbers of people coming into the country, and that's not hate or bigotry, it's mathematics.
I agree with you completely on that, but I do have to point out that some of the immigration we're getting in this country is coming from places like Bulgaria and Romania, and going on from your argument, that's more white people. This isn't a replacement.
I mean, this is getting silly now. I mean, we were talking about the economy. You know, one of the things that I didn't say, at no point did I say all immigrants are welfare dependent. I didn't say that. So you know, coming back with that is silly. But do you know what, from an economic perspective, do you know what oversupply of labour does to an economy?
Oh, for sure. No, you're quite right. So
that's another problem. That's another reason why we can't afford to live. That's another reason why wages are either stagnant or going down. This is not because of mass immigration from Bulgaria and Romania driving down wages. This is simple economics. And this is why British people are struggling to get by without state aid.
You see, I completely agree with that.
Right.
But I was making another point that just occurred to me.
It's a silly point. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend, but it was. You know, we've already gone down that road. I'm not going to sit here and talk about a skin color for the entire time. You have to go and listen to that speech. You didn't listen to that speech.
Well,
and I think it's you know, you're asking me questions on assumptions about that speech when you haven't actually listened to it. We can talk again maybe when you.
Why I'm talking to you is to clarify this. I'm not saying what you're saying is. I'm actually asking you how you balance these two concepts, because on one side
I didn't say I wanted loads of white immigration either. This is the assumption. This is what I mean. You're coming at me from that assumption. I didn't say I wanted a load of immigration of white people. I want the immigration halted, full stop, at least for a certain period, because this country's in a mess immigration-wise. You must know that. And I didn't say I want. I mean, you see, you came at me with that question out of an assumption, which, if I may say so, is the kind of is a bigoted thing to do. You assumed that I want to stop immigration of non-white people and I want immigration of white people. You came to that assumption about me because you read Hope Not Hate.
Something about the Great Replacement, you see. So that's always.
So when the Guardian says that the white English are no longer the majority in London, do you have the same argument with them?
I don't like the Guardian either.
Well, you understand my point.
Yeah.
You may not think it's in any way significant or in any way worrying or in any way even noteworthy that white people are becoming a minority in major European cities. I do. I think it's a lie. I think it frightens people. I think it frightens a lot of white people. I know that I've met many parents, for example, whose kids are being bullied at school for being white. And then you have this happening at a time when anti-white sentiment is both public and condoned by politicians and by the public sector. White people are excluded from this, that, and the other. That happens at a time when they're becoming minorities. Now, you don't see an issue there. I do, and millions of people do.
Yeah, I understand that people will worry about I mean, I can understand how people will be angry about children being bullied because they're white, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's not even what you're talking about, really.
Telling you why the discussion about white is a discussion I had, and this was a specific conference about that, and that's why I spoke about it.
Yeah. Well,
and I'd ask you to listen to the speech.
Yeah. Well, this is past that point now. So now I'm just asking you to explain your position.
Yeah, and I think I have.
Yes. I did listen to it. I just don't remember everything about it anymore, because I have to explain. We were going to do this interview about, a month ago, something like that.
Understood.
And then things intervened. So you have to, and then I couldn't find it again. So, all right. So let's get back to your these points from your manifesto. Would you explain the universal credit system? Just talk about
the Tories wanted to bring it in to simplify. They wanted to bring all the benefits into essentially into one payment in order to simplify and cut back on bureaucracy. It hasn't actually been completed in most places. It's overcosted. I thought it was a good issue to bring up for debate. They wanted to bring down costs. It's up for debate whether that was a worthy aspiration of theirs. I think it probably was. But as it was the Tories, they've made a pig's ear of it. Labour probably, like Labour, make pig's ear of most things. But overall, it was an attempt at combining benefits to simplify it. For most people, it ended up being a cut in their actual pay for those areas where it's been implemented. For most people, it's meant quite a bit of hardship. So it hasn't worked. In one respect, it hasn't worked. Perhaps in another, it has, if it has reduced complexity, if it has reduced costs. That was the debate that I wanted the party to have. So I introduced that question into for the party members to debate.
Well, how do you propose to deal with it? What are your plans?
Well, the members didn't vote we put an option to them to get rid of universal credit or to simplify. They were given three options, and they didn't pick the one that involved universal credit. They picked another one.
Oh,
so whatever
you haven't actually.
It'll be in the manifesto this year.
Yeah.
We're still putting together the manifesto. There was a thing we voted on. The vote result was published to the members, and it'll be published in the manifesto this year.
Right. Okay. Well, so I'll wait to read that. So you see, you put forward some in the manifesto I read. You put forward some notes of intent: increased defence budget. Mm-hmm. NHS free to eligible UK residents, local government should stay out of politics, race, religion, and child protection administered equally. Mm-hmm. And all of those are very noble, but how are you going to do it?
How do you mean?
For instance, in another section, you talk about teachers not being political.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop a teacher from not being political? I mean, are you going to
You fire them, and then others get the message. It's as simple as that. I don't. Your question. What are you going to do about it? It's in the manifesto what we're going to do about it.
But who's to police this?
Well, look, the National Union of Teachers had no problem passing a motion saying that they were not going to teach British culture to children, despite the fact they were required to. I would have answered, if I was in government, I would write a letter to the National Union of Teachers, tell them what they were doing was unlawful, and that any teacher found to have, you can't police, no, nobody can, but you change the culture and you stop letting them get away with this. I would have told them in no uncertain terms that any teacher who defies the national curriculum, which we will introduce a new national curriculum in this manifesto this year, if they defy it, they will lose their jobs.
Oh, so you're proposing to introduce a curriculum, an approved curriculum,
which they must follow, and if they don't, they will be fired.
And how are you going, having worked as a teacher, you see, I know that teachers can do all sorts of things in their classes. How would you decide whether they followed the line or not? You'd have to have somebody there all the time. How are you going to do this?
That's like saying, how would you know when a crime is committed? How would you know when anyone does anything wrong? You find out some instances and you make examples of them. That's how the world works. You change the culture. First of all, you change the culture. You tell them there's a new government in town and they're not going to get away with this anymore.
You know, I've heard teachers saying some really stupid things and things with which I disagreed, but it's very difficult.
Yeah, everything, life is difficult.
Well,
life is difficult. But you don't have to let happen what is happening now. For example, when kids come home from school and tell their parents that they learned there are 100 genders today, and that parent comes and that parent expresses concern to me, if I was their MP, for example, something would be done about that. That's how the world works. We can't be there every moment of every day, but you get examples, it happens, and then you make a point, you make examples out of people. That's how the legal system works. That's how the system works. You make examples out of
you have to have parents actually making complaints about what their kids
what do you want me to, we'll put someone in every classroom.
I really don't
answered the question. We find instances and we make examples of them. We send directions to schools to tell them that this is how it's going to be from now on. Everyone is not going to be caught, just like everyone who commits a crime is not going to be caught. But with the criminal justice system works by being visible to the public. And the reason that it's visible to the public is so that you can tell the public by making examples of instances that you find how what the rules now are. That's how it works, and that's the answer to your question.
Okay, I don't actually. I agree with what you're saying. Speaking as somebody who has made many YouTube videos about English culture and Shakespeare and painting and European, you know. I am in full agreement with you that something is going wrong with the education system. And I've spoken to enough teachers to know that it's, in many cases, the teachers that are going wrong. But I also know it's, you can't send the stormtroopers in to arrest teachers, you know, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's bad optics. So I just wondered, I really am interested. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm really interested in how you intend to.
I've answered your question.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand it, I'm afraid I can't make it any clearer.
Okay, well, yeah, because I know they policed teaching in the Soviet Union, didn't they? And look where that got them. All right.
No rules at all, then, is what you're saying. Anyway, let's move on. I've only got a few minutes left, I'm afraid. I've got another interview to do.
Well, now, you want known jihadists deported. And, I wish they would. But what if they're British?
Yeah, well, that's also... British people are subject to the law. I'm clear throughout the manifesto that non-British people would be deported. In that, I am telling you that we don't deport British people. When I say non-British people will be deported, that's also, most people would take from that British people won't.
No, I realise that. I wasn't arguing with that. What I'm actually asking you about is, if they're British, then they'll have to imprison them.
Yes.
Now, this is a problem because you know, I think everyone knows by now, that prisons are like jihadi universities, aren't they? So how are you going to deal with that?
Well, we can stop pandering. We can stop all the religious privileges they have. We can start punishing them. You know, we are treating jihadists as if they're the ones in charge in this country. Even the prison service runs around and organizes itself around the whim and demands of the jihadi prisoners. It's absurd. It's disgraceful. We stop it. There's step one. There are simple, very simple things you can do. At the moment the prison service panders to these, I say we turn the tide a little bit and stop the religious privileges. If they want to religious practice, they can stay out of jail.
Can you give me a specific example of a situation and tell me how you deal with it? I mean, would you separate the prisoners?
I'm a politician.
Yeah.
I am putting forward broad proposals on how the country would be better. I'm not a prison officer. So okay. The wisest of leaders doesn't do everything themselves because they can't possibly, because I have no experience in everything. What you do is get people who have got experience and you tell them what you want achieved, and then they are tasked with achieving it. I have told you one major step is that we change the culture inside prisons, just as we change the culture across this country. And step one is to stop pandering to Islam in prisons and outside of it. No halal food, no special religious practice.
Oh, now that's a specific.
They want to practice Islam, they can stay out of jail. When they're in jail, they lose that right. They will not be pandered to. They will not be pandered to.
Okay, now that's an important thing. That's what I was actually asking you about. Of course, you know this is going to cause a lot of violence, isn't it?
So what do you do when violence breaks out?
You'd have to be prepared for that.
Yes, and you'd have to do what? You'd have to quell it.
Right. And you'd have to quell it using
violence.
For instance, the police.
Yes.
And the police are, to my mind, in many ways, in the same sort of cultural paralysis as the teachers.
Yes.
So how would you handle that? How are you going to change all of this? You know, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm asking you how it could be done.
It's quite extraordinary. It really is. You fire people who don't do what they're told. You do that a few times, you watch it change. You change the rules, you tell people what the rules are.
Are you going to sack all the police commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
If they don't do what they're told, yes. What are you laughing for? I mean, look at the state of the country. And it's because...
No, I'm not laughing. There are some police commissioners who are definitely in need of... but, you know, it sounds to me like there's going to be chaos.
Of course. But what so we do nothing? You know, this is exactly why we're in the state we're in. You know, it really is. Because people say you can't do that, they'll go mad. Okay, well, let's just stay quiet. And that's exactly what you're doing. I refuse to do that. You have to accept that they will react with violence. You have to be ready.
Hang on a minute. Hang on, please. Don't put words into my mouth. I didn't say that's what I'm saying. I'm asking you how it can be done.
And I'm telling you, I've told you. You remove people from positions of authority who are not doing what needs to be done. And you replace them with people who will. It's not that hard. So that's certainly not that hard to understand.
Okay, well, it's...
I mean, you seem to think that I personally want to run everything in the country myself. This is not what politics is about. It's about a principle. It's about an idea of what would be better, of what we need to do to make this country. But that's the politician's job, is to create the vision of how this would be better.
So why do you think other political parties haven't done this?
And lock up the prisoners. That's not how this works.
How do you... why? So can you speculate on why other political parties who are in power aren't doing this?
Because they're comfortable. It's all nice and comfortable. They don't want to rock the boat. They're like you. They think, oh, there'll be too much trouble. We can't do that.
Oh no, please don't say. I did not say that.
They are weak and they are being bullied. So they will say, no, there'll be too much trouble if we do that. Let's just leave it. They want an easy life. Most of them are weak, unprincipled, and the House of Commons needs to be swept out.
Do you remember what Margaret Thatcher, when she took on the miners' unions? It was, well, several years, wasn't it, of violence in the streets. And that was just one issue. And you're going for a whole load of it, which I agree, a lot of things that you pointed out. I'm not disputing the necessity. I'm just wondering how you're going to do that with all of these things, all at the same time.
Well, if I was the Prime Minister, I would have a lot of things at my disposal to do that. I would change the people in charge. That's what the Prime Minister does. The Prime Minister appoints a cabinet, tells that cabinet what the vision for the country is. That cabinet then goes about putting the right people in the right jobs to go towards that vision. That's how it works. If the cabinet doesn't appoint the right people, I reappoint the cabinet. That's how it works. It's about putting the right people in the right place. That's what leaders do. Their job isn't to go around to every jail cell and do the job themselves. Their job is to present the vision, what they want done, and find the people to do it.
This is the problem with politicians, though, isn't it? They have their independent ideas, and when you've got one person just doing this, I'm not suggesting that you would turn into a dictator, but it does sound a bit like a description of a dictatorship.
That's a leader. A dictator doesn't listen to the people. A dictator unleashes tyranny on the people. I would be an elected by the people Prime Minister, one who has told the people what I would do if they gave me their vote. They gave me their vote. In exchange for that, I then carry out what I told the electorate I would do. That's not tyranny. That's or dictatorship. That's democracy.
All right. Well, so you don't have much time left. Can I just ask you one last thing? Is there any chance of you reaching some sort of agreement with UKIP and Brexit to divide up the constituencies so you're not taking away diluting each other's votes?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I was the only one who offered, who said I would sit down and talk about seat sharing. They all ignored me. I have no interest in those other parties. They're not us. And my plan is a very long-term one. The UKIP are absolutely, I don't quite know how to describe UKIP now. I mean, when the leader doesn't go to the conference, and I believe the leader and the chair have sacked each other. So this is not a political party anymore. It's a joke. And the Brexit party it's a single issue party. Nigel Farage is not nearly as popular as he thinks he is. In order for anyone to change politics in this country, they have to threaten Labour. Nigel Farage will never threaten Labour. And in any case, he's given his own party a sell-by date. My plan, my aim, my ambition is over the coming decades and not the coming couple of years, which those other parties are all about.
But if the public can't get any idea of you because you're excluded, then how are you going to do that?
Yeah, we're managing so far. I mean, we've broken through, for example, the Electoral Commission's barrier to become a major party in our first year, because we raised more than £250,000 in our first year. We achieved major party status. We won 2 councillors. Out of only about 40 that we stood, so we beat the Tories, we beat Labour, we beat Greens, we beat UKIP, all across the country. We had second and third places in various different areas. And this is it within 1 year of founding, and with the press completely against us. So if we can do it in our first year, if we can achieve all that in our first year with the press against us, we'll be okay. And look, Donald Trump won the US presidency with the worst press coverage of any person ever, I think. The press is not as powerful as people think. We will get out there, we will get feet on the ground, we will talk to people on doorsteps, as we're already doing, and we will not cower to social media tyranny. We'll keep going.
Okay, well, that was very interesting. Thank you very much, Miss Waters.
Oh, thank you. I like a fiery debate.
Oh, I never thought of myself as fiery, but
you are. I can assure you are. You gave me a
you too. Let's finish this with mutual back.
Absolutely.
And on each cheek.
Of course. If I could shake your hand through the screen, I would. This is political fiery debate, nothing personal at all. And it's lovely to meet you. And thank you. But I'm happy to chat again, but I do have another interview at 8. That wasn't.
No, I know. Okay. Thank you very much for talking.
Not at all. Thank you.
Okay.
And maybe I'll talk to you again. All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Bye. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share, because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons, because occasionally they reset. Till next time.